As we all know, Jeremy Hambley, Unsleeved Media, has been permanently banned by Wizards of the Coast. Not surprising, we expected a ban, we just didn't realize how strong it would be. Jeremy's sources had said 12 to 24 months, mine had said 18 to 36, and it was going to come down on Friday by close of business. It didn't come, it came today. Now, there could be a reason for this. Jeremy was the first to say that his sources had said X. I came out and said my sources said Y. Either one of these could be true, and if that's the case, they may have engaged what's known as a canary trap. A canary trap is a tactic in which you leak specific information to small groups of people, and one group might get this information, another group might get this information. And depending on how you do it, you can actually ascertain who's leaking, and then you can decide what to do with them, up to and including termination. It's not uncommon for that to happen. The contracts usually allow for the leak of possible damaging information or proprietary information to be a severable action. I don't know. All I know is that when the ban didn't come when I expected it, or when I had been told, I shut up about it. I had gotten a new date, but I didn't pass it on. I immediately went into defensive mode for my source. That being said, Jeremy has been banned. We already knew it. Let's go on with what can be done now. Now, I'm going to preface this video. I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on television. I sometimes play one on Reddit, but it's usually to troll a bunch of stupid people that are legal advice. Be that as it may, I am not a lawyer. This should not in any way constitute legal advice. Even if I was a lawyer, what I am providing would not be valid legal advice. That's just how it is. So, let's go on. 2 lawsuits are possible from this. The first one is a little easier to go through. It's also harder to go through. And that's against Wizards of the Coast. Now, they've shut off his Magic Online account, and he apparently has several $100s in tickets that he was never able to sell, and all the money he spent on the personal merchandise or the online merchandise he no longer has access to. So what can he do? Not much, actually. The best he could do is try and get the money back for the tickets, since that's money that has not been used. It's not an accrued debt. That is money he put in there in the expectation he'd be able to use it to further his gameplay. This is not like a monthly subscription. Now, I say it's easier because establishing jurisdiction in the state will be easy. In order to file a lawsuit in his state, he would have to establish that the court has jurisdiction, meaning that legally it can hear the case. That's very easy against a company like Wizards of the Coast. Because their product sells in the state and because the lawsuit is related to the product being sold in the state, it's very easy to establish jurisdiction at that point. However, you can also make the argument that any store that is part of the Wizards Play network is an affiliate. They get special promotional stuff. They report into Wizards of the Coast for DCI certifications and DCI information. You can make the argument there. So that's pretty easy. Why does it become harder? Well, it's harder because a company like this, their best defensive tactic is to draw it out as long as they can, to force the legal fees to be exponentially high and to pretty much force you to capitulate. They don't have to give you anything back. They don't have to admit wrongdoing. Now, if they do so, they win. That's just how it is. Here's the thing that could actually be interesting to see. Every trial, whether it's criminal or civil, has what's known as the discovery phase, where the prosecution or the appellant can subpoena information relating to the case itself. In this case, he could request information concerning what internal memos were sent about everything. Who did these people talk to, including their personal Twitter accounts, their personal email accounts, etc. They can do that. At the same time, Wizards could subpoena for the name of his source within Wizards. That's the double-edged sword. If it happens, unless he has a valid reason, and normally this would fall under journalism, he would have to provide that or be found in contempt of court. He's not a journalist. He's a critic. That's an issue. So he has to think about that. Now, if they can't draw it out and force him to capitulate, then they probably try to force arbitration. And in arbitration means no trial. They are trying to haggle. And the most likely outcome would be each party takes care of their own personal legal fees. He gets a couple $100 to make up for what he had in there, and they admit no wrongdoing. That's the most likely outcome. The second lawsuit concerns Christine Sprankle. As we all know, she's the catalyst for all of this. If he decides to go after Christine Sprankle, it becomes a bit harder. He really can't file within his state court system. He can't establish that jurisdiction. She doesn't sell products there. She doesn't cosplay there as far as we know. She's never received a paycheck within the last, being fair, 5 years. So there's really no personal jurisdiction for a court there. If you wanted to go the small claims court route, you'd have to file in her state. However, the most likely option for that would actually be the federal court system. And the reason I say that is because she has cosplayed in multiple states. By doing so, she would technically fall under the interstate commerce laws of the federal government. These are the same laws that were cited during the Affordable Care Act, being a duly federal authorization because of interstate commerce laws. If he does that, it's a little easier to do. It also requires an attorney. And the reason it requires an attorney is because the federal law system is very, very difficult to navigate. Even a lot of attorneys have trouble sometimes. And what's more, your case will be appealed. And there's a chance that the SCOTUS could hear it. The Supreme Court of the United States could hear it. You need an attorney. It's also more expensive to file in the federal system, from what I understand. Establishing jurisdiction should not be that hard. And then during the discovery process is where it gets fun. He can then contact Twitter. He can subpoena Twitter, subpoena YouTube. He can get a copy of all the videos she put up, even if she's deleted them. He can get a record of all messages she's had, all her tweets that are private or have been deleted. He can figure out who she's talked to, which means if she's talked to hipsters of the coast, he can then turn around and get their stuff. He can go after the professor as well, because they've talked. And at that point, the subpoena is overreaching. It's hitting everybody. And you think you deleted stuff? You haven't. By law, Twitter has to keep a record of everything, I believe, for 7 years. I can't remember if it's under Sarbanes-Oxley or not, but once again, this is not legal advice, so take that as you will. So any videos they've made, any collusion they've made, and then he can hit her with this in court. Now, on the flip side, she can go after him too. She can get all this information, all the videos from YouTube that he may or may not have deleted, all the tweets he may or may not have deleted. What'll be kind of interesting to see is if a lot of these accounts we've been seeing lately claiming to be Jeremy, if they've been orchestrated by Fournier or Christine or the professor, kind of like the targeted harassment campaign. And if it is, that's a huge blow to them. The point of the matter is that Christine may legally be in trouble here. And the reason I say that is because if he can establish that there was no actual harassment going on, if he can support that, if he can supply it, he's going to have a very solid case. And he's going to be able to go after her for damages to his channel because of the ban. He's going to be able to go after for defamation of character. He's going to have a lot of ground to stand on and ask for damages. The problem is, can she pay him? Probably not. I don't know. There's a good chance she can't. Jeremy needs to think about this from a legal standpoint. It's expensive to initiate any kind of lawsuit like this. It is. We're talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars just to go after Wizards alone. I sued Hewlett-Packard. I did it by myself. I won. Sometimes it's not hard to prove your case. Sometimes it is. Wizards has a brand to protect, and that's understandable. The final point I want to make isn't about the lawsuit. Jeremy's video was very clear that this sets a precedent. It doesn't. It sets a precedent within the Wizards of the Coast realm. It doesn't within the larger gaming community. Some companies have been using what you say on social media or outside the game to inflict in-game penalties on people. Case in point, in 2014, the character Erotica 1 was banned by CCP Games from EVE Online for what became known as the bonus room round. Now, it was a controversy that really wasn't a controversy so much as much like this, where a member of the CSM, the Council of Stellar Management, came out and did this hit piece on his blog attacking Erotica 1 for it. Now, it was an absolute shitty thing to do, don't get me wrong, but it didn't amount to as bad as this guy claimed. And he led a witch hunt, and the final result was that Erotica 1 was banned for something that happened outside of the game. CCP used the claim that, well, he started this in-game with his JITA scamming, and he transferred it out of game with TeamSpeak, where he'd keep this guy for an hour or two, and then he released the recording, and they considered that bullying, and they banned him. Fine, okay. The second one that I can think of involves Rift. Last year, I believe it was, the guild Apotheosis, the top rating guild within Rift, they said they were leaving. And they said they were leaving for several reasons. And they listed them out. And chief among them was the degrading quality of the game. Now, previously, Arayazu, one of the players from Apotheosis, had his account suspended, and allegedly Arconix and Inoni, two of the executive producer of the game and the raid lead developer, I believe, respectively, they got in touch and said, yeah, you got a 3-week ban, but we'll get rid of it if you get rid of these videos that are critical of the game on YouTube, which was an absolute screwed up thing to do if it's true. It's never been proven one way or the other, so I take that as is. However, we have seen some of the responses from Tryon. I'm willing to believe him. That being said, because of the critical videos of the game, and they're very public, they'll come back if the game improves. Tryon permanently banned each and every person in Apotheosis. They hadn't done anything in game. It was all out of game, literally. These companies have a brand to protect, and I understand that. I think we all do. But they have to do things right by the player base. For Jeremy, Wizards needs to reimburse him for the money they've taken. You're talking about theft and fraud at that point, and possibly, because it's done over the internet, you could tack on federal charges of wire fraud if you wanted to. Once again, not a lawyer. Take it as you will. Jeremy has, I think, a case on both fronts, against Wizards and against Christine. Christine will be the biggest one to win, because if he can win that, he can come back and say each and every one of these people who targeted me with harassment, that I can prove they were targeting me with harassment, they need to be banned as well. And Wizards will be put into a predicament where they have to respond, and they have to do exactly what they said, which is ban people who engage in targeted harassment, or they will be forced to admit that there's a double standard there. And let's be honest, for these people, if there wasn't a double standard, they wouldn't have any.